Gene Deal wasn't just another name tossed around in hip-hop's shadowy corners. He was there. Right there, backstage, front seat, hotel suite, every room that mattered. He was Diddy's longtime bodyguard, the guy who saw everything, and when he finally decided to speak out, it wasn't some cryptic Instagram live or vague tweet. It was a full-blown verbal takedown, raw, direct, and dangerously detailed. He didn't just throw shade. He named names, gave dates, described what went down behind closed doors, and then, just like that, poof, gone. His last appearance was the kind of moment that sticks to your spine. There he was, calm but cold, slicing through Diddy's carefully built persona like a scalpel. He talked about freak off. Arties said Biggie's death wasn't random, hinted at a cleanup operation that didn't just scrub reputations, it erased people. Hours after that interview dropped, Gene was nowhere to be found. Not a tweet, not a phone ping, not even a delayed post. People vanish all the time, but this felt like something else. The way his family tells it, it was brazen. Middle of the street, broad daylight. A black SUV rolls up, windows tinted darker than legal. Doors swing open, and out step men they swear have been in Diddy's orbit for years. They didn't flash badges, didn't ask questions. They just grabbed Gene like he was a package, shoved him inside, and drove off. Like a scene out of a gangster flick. But this wasn't fiction. That was the last anyone saw him. And if that sounds dramatic, well, that's kind of the point. It wasn't just a disappearance, it was a message. Now, people close to Gene had been warning him days before he went missing. The calls started. Blocked numbers, heavy silence, then threats, real ones. Stuff like, take it back or take what's coming. But Gene didn't fold. He told friends he knew the risks, that the truth had a price, and he was ready to pay it. What he wasn't ready for, apparently, was how quickly that payment would come due. This isn't the first time someone close to the Diddy empire went quiet. Victim 3, a key witness in the federal case, was ready to testify. She'd reportedly agreed to drop her pseudonym and take the stand with explosive details. And then, silence. No statement, no lawyer, no explanation. Not even the prosecution could track her down. Sound familiar? See, that's where things start getting creepy. A pattern starts forming, and the whispers begin. Insiders say this isn't coincidence, it's strategy. They call it the cleanup crew, not PR agents, but lawyers. Real cleaners, people who handle messes the old-fashioned way. Off the grid, off the record, off the map. Some former associates describe a system, not just one-off incidents, but a whole structure built to keep the truth buried. The kind of operation where people disappear, stories change, and nobody wants to go on record. One road manager said that when things got messy, Diddy never lifted a finger. Others took care of it, quietly, efficiently. The theory? If you talk, you vanish. Maybe not every time, but enough to make people think twice. And Gene, he talked more than anyone. Then there's the most chilling piece of all. Rumors about a final recording. Not an interview, not a rant, but a full-blown archive. Hours of audio, video, conversations, alleged footage from inside those infamous parties. Word is, Gene had it all. Names, dates, code words, and maybe, just maybe, a copy of that footage made it into federal hands. But here's the twist. If that tape exists, why hasn't anyone seen it? There's this unspoken rule in the entertainment industry, especially in hip-hop circles, that some things just don't get said. Everybody knows something, but nobody says everything. That's what made Gene Deal different. He wasn't speculating or recycling rumors. He was there when Biggie got the call, when hotel rooms turned into war rooms, when certain guests arrived and no one dared ask questions. And it's that difference, his closeness to the chaos, that made his words dangerous. People always knew Diddy was powerful, the type of guy who could pick up the phone and make problems disappear. But now, that power is being dragged into daylight. The lawsuits aren't whispers anymore. their legal documents stacked high on courtroom desks. The charges range from trafficking to racketeering to something darker, coercion under the mask of luxury. But what's got people really talking isn't the case itself, it's how many people who were supposed to testify suddenly aren't. It's not just Jean and victim 3. Insiders claim there's been a pattern for years. Artists who tried to break free, security guys who left and started talking, women who filed claims only to vanish right before depositions. One former assistant said she was approached by a stranger outside her apartment. He didn't touch her, didn't say anything. He just repeated her daughter's name, slowly, twice, then walked away. She never showed up to court again. And this isn't all conspiracy theory either. Court filings show that Diddy was recently accused of using other inmates' phone codes from inside jail, bypassing security measures, making unauthorized three-way calls, trying to influence witnesses while behind bars. That's not just influence, that's infrastructure. That's control even from a cell, and when you start to realize how deep that control might go, Jean's vanishing doesn't feel random. It feels planned. But here's the twist that no one expected. His disappearance might have actually backfired. Because now, everyone's looking. Everyone's asking. The story isn't about Diddy's legal team spinning statements or brushing things off. It's about the fact that the guy who screamed the truth into a microphone is suddenly gone. And every second he stays missing, the volume of his message just keeps rising. Some believe Jean was working on something big. A personal archive. His own little time bomb. Footage, voice memos, maybe even unreleased interviews. Not just about Diddy, but about the system, about who knew what and when, the way things were really run. If that archive exists and if the feds have it, that could change everything. Because here's what people don't understand. These cases aren't just about what happened, they're about proving it. In court, emotion doesn't win, evidence does. And if Jean really had footage that backed his claims, that's the kind of thing that could flip a trial on its head. Of course. There's another possibility too, that the tape never makes it out, that it gets buried in some evidence locker, sealed under the excuse of ongoing investigation or national security. Wouldn't be the first time. Still, people close to Jean say he knew this might happen. That's why he hinted at duplicating the files. Maybe someone else has a copy. Maybe it's waiting for the right moment. Or maybe the threat of its release is the real weapon. After all, the silence around it is loud enough to make even seasoned lawyers nervous. Whatever the case, one thing's certain. Gene Deal's story isn't over just because he's gone. If anything, it might have just begun. Diddy's empire wasn't built overnight. It was layered, polished, and protected, first by charm, then by fear. He mastered the art of influence early, balancing the image of a mogul with the unspoken reality of someone who didn't like to be crossed. From Bad Boys Rise to the parties that only insiders were invited to, there was always a dual reality, what the public saw and what people whispered when cameras stopped rolling. Behind the scenes, it was all about control. Control over the narrative, the people, the footage, the memories. And for years, it worked. People played along because it was safer. Speak out and the doors would start closing. Jobs would vanish. Phones would stop ringing. The same faces that once smiled with you in club booze suddenly looked away when you walked in. Not because they didn't care, but because they were scared. A few tried anyway. Some artists, some assistants, a couple of security guards. They went on podcasts, wrote books, filed lawsuits, but they all hit the same wall. Sudden settlements, vanished documents, threats that were never proven but always timed too perfectly. It created an invisible force field around Diddy, one built on plausible deniability and very real fear. That's what makes the current moment so different. The cracks are finally showing, the trial is underway, the press isn't fawning anymore, prosecutors are treating this like organized crime, not just celebrity drama, and the people Diddy once silenced, they're starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, the world is finally listening. But that doesn't mean they're safe. Mark Curry once said being around Diddy drained his spirit. Others echoed that same emptiness. They described a culture where everything revolved around power, who had it, who wanted it, and what they'd give up to stay close to it. That kind of environment doesn't just break you, it reshapes you, makes you question your memories, your morals, even your sanity. And when people escape that orbit, They don't come out bragging. They come out tired, damaged. For Gene Deal, it seemed like truth was the only way to heal. He wasn't trying to go viral. He wasn't selling a book. He was unloading pain, telling stories not for attention, but to finally stop carrying them. And that's probably why it hit so hard, because it wasn't entertainment. It was a warning. The deeper the trial goes, the more the old stories start lining up. Connections that once seemed like conspiracy now read like coordination. Witnesses vanishing, records sealed, allegations going back decades, and through it all, one question keeps coming back. How did he get away with it for so long? The answer might be uncomfortable because it's not just about Diddy. It's about an industry that let him, a culture that rewards silence and punishes exposure, a system that values profits over people. And when you zoom out, it's not one bad man. It's a blueprint. Gene's vanishing has forced people to look closer, not just at Diddy, but at how this all keeps happening, how people with money and influence keep escaping justice, how the truth always seems one step away from disappearing with them. And maybe that's why his silence hits harder than his words ever could, because it proves the point. The scary part, Gene might not be the last. There are others out there, people with stories, names, evidence. Some are speaking softly, some are still debating if it's worth the risk, but now they know the price. They've seen what happens when you talk, and they're asking themselves the only question that really matters: am I ready to vanish too?